Um, Hello there. Hi guys. It's my first video in gas. So yeah, it's obviously 1 year on since the Greece trip. I wanted to make this video just try and help anyone who's travelling on their own. I'll just try and help you, if you're travelling on your own. So obviously I start on my first trip when I went on my own. So I basically was in a situation where there's no one really wanted to go with me. I was 22 at the time. I'm probably a year older now, and it was like a situation. I don't know if you might have felt, and if you might have felt this before, but you know when you're like out and you've got this mission, you really want to visit this country, but you can't. You also don't want to be that guy who just goes on their own. And I've had that conversation before with people where people think like, it's a bit weird you're going on your own. But I went because it was a dream for me to go to California. I'd always talked about it. I know I've been to the States with family in Canada, but also at this position I was in, I had done university, and I'd commuted to university, so I hadn't actually gone to university like the full experience. So I saved a little bit of money up, and I thought if no one else is going to go, you only live once, and I really wanted to visit. So yeah, in terms of understanding how I can best help you traveling on your own, one of the first things I learned along the way was building a checklist. Now I know it sounds very cliche, building a checklist is quite boring, it's effort, but trust me, if you're traveling on your own and you don't have anyone who you can go with, and you're quite you're in a situation where you're going on your own and you don't really know what's happening in a foreign country. Checklist is one of the best things you can do. Now if you haven't travelled on your own before and you've travelled before, you can kind of take it from memory, but a lot of it you can research and you can find what works for you. And to be honest, I do have a really good checklist that I'll just give out for free, to be honest. And it's really useful. It basically tells you step by step what you've got to do when you're traveling on your own. So yeah, pretty much that was the situation. And so checklist really helps. Secondly, it's important to look around signage, just as you would when you're driving. An airport can be a really big place and a really daunting place if you're new to it. Luckily, I had my childhood experience at hand. When I was growing up, I used to go to India a lot with my family, so airport experience wasn't new to me, but I recognise there's people out there who haven't travelled very often and maybe haven't travelled in very many years. So it's kind of important that you look around signage. And what I might do, feel free to comment and let me know. But what I might do, and I think would be really useful, is to look at particular forms of signage and signs in an airport that can help you. Because I've done it before, it could be fairly straightforward, but I'm going to try and build something for you guys where you kind of understand it all in step-by-step process. Because all airports are quite different, but they fairly are the same. There's not too many differences in structure. So yeah, that's like the situation, to be honest, of it. And so yeah, that's like the situation. Sorry, I'm just rambling a bit. I'm trying to think. I'm looking around at the same time with this new country. So those are two things. And thirdly, this is something that people kind of get wrong. Well, it's not really get wrong, but people are not used to. So say, for example, you're taking a bus. You're going to go and take a bus from, say, where I live in Totteridge. The bus, I don't have to go very early. I can reach about 5 minutes and I can stand at the stop and wait for the bus. With planes, it's quite different. With planes, even if you're experienced at an airport, I always suggest arriving a minimum of 2 to 3 hours. In fact, 3-4 hours before your flight actually goes. This is what people get wrong. People spend a lot of time. Even if you're, it's a bit difficult. Instead if you've got a morning flight, but if you've got an afternoon flight, and I'm going to talk about flight prices and all that stuff in a separate video, I think there's so much to it as well. Even when you're travelling, if say for example I had a 2:45 flight, I would leave, I'd wake up at 6 a.m. I'd wake up at 6 a.m. and I'd leave the house around 9 a.m. and I did a few different preparation things. I'll just share with you again with music because I think it's such an interesting holiday. But yeah, so pretty much go and arrive minimum 3 hours, because what you've got to understand is that it's a big airport and there's 2 key stages to it. In fact, there's 3 key stages to it if you're going to be carrying luggage. Number one is checking in. So you've got to check in. And it's not you can sometimes, if it's depending on the flight, you can pre-check in, but even if you're going on like a long distance train, so for example California, even if I pre-checked in, if you're doing it, you can't really pre-check in on certain flights. So what does check-in actually mean? You're probably asking. So checking in is, when you're like going into a when you're going into a train station, you've got to pay the tickets and you've got to print out your ticket at the machine. That's the equivalent of checking in at an airport. So essentially what happens is you print out your ticket, a member of staff will print out, or alternatively you'll have a machine where you can print the ticket out. And pre-check-in is where you can actually assign, it's like getting a train line app or having a digital card and ticket, where you can do it online and you get like a QR code. It makes it a lot easier. But if you want to take it the slower process and a more simple process, just take your time, go and check in. And then you've also got your security. Now, I want to do an entire video on security and what to do and how to make it as easy as possible, because I've seen so many people faff about with it, and it can be quite awkward and quite, it's not very difficult to do. But yeah, what you got to kind of understand is that there's slightly different security settings. Slightly different security requirements depending on where you're at. So in some places you'll have you might have to take off your shoes, and other places you might not. But it's important to understand what security is and what it entails. You can sometimes just take it at the airport. You can sometimes check on the airport website, but I'm really trying to create a full checklist of all the airports, so that with the checklist it has that as well. Just to break it down for you, there's an entire process of it. And I find that really useful. It's just having tick boxes. Don't stress about things like that, but it could be queues. And so if you're taking time out, and you're doing all these, you're taking time out and you're going in, you'll not be stressed, because a number of different things to do can get quite stressful going in 3 hours before. So that's the ultimate tip. I've said it in like 10, 15 different ways, but that is the ultimate tip I've got for you guys. Yeah, so pretty much I think that's the big thing. And then also another neat little hack. Now, there's often a paradox, and some people laugh about it, like if everyone knows it, then no one would actually eventually get on the flight. But basically, it's really useful practice if you wait for everyone to go on the flight before you go on the flight, because it's just going to be a lot more smoother experience. Imagine you going at the start of the queue. So imagine this: the train's open. The train's open slightly different. So the train's open, the seats are open. You can go in and you can sit down comfortably. But when you're travelling budget airlines, and if you're travelling anything, even if it's not budget, seats are going to be smaller unless you're travelling business class. But anyway.